Hey guys, welcome to my channel and welcome to today's video. Today we are going to be tracking my expenses for the last week of November, as well as closing out all of the categories and seeing where money went. So if you want to see how the last week of November went and what I spent in total, then just keep on watching. Okay, so I decided to do this a little bit differently, and I do want to kind of discuss some things I thought about. And as I've been doing this trial run of expense tracking, I think I've been thinking about it a little bit complicated because I do my expenses based on paycheck and like the amount of money that I set aside for myself. For example, like the variable spending, I set aside a certain amount of money, covers the days it needs to cover. I don't think in terms of like the complete month. And I think where I've been going wrong with the way I've been approaching this is not necessarily with tracking, but thinking about where the money's coming from and not what the actual like expense is. For example, when I was pre-writing these transactions, one of them I categorized as like miscellaneous because that's where I was taking the money from. But it was actually a shopping expense because it was just something that I wanted to buy. It didn't really fit into a specific category, but it wasn't a true miscellaneous expense. So I think that's where I've been kind of going a little bit backwards, is like thinking about where the money is coming from and not what the actual expense is. I've been pretty accurate up to this point, but it dawned on me as I was working through this. And then also I need to not, again, with the whole where the money is coming from thing, not thinking in terms of like, I'm going to track, on the week to week, but when we come to a monthly close, like for example, these, some of these bottom transactions on the 30th are actually coming from my next paycheck, which is going to cover the first basically 2 weeks of December, but it covers starting November 30th. So I obviously needed to track these for November to get my November totals. So I think, long-winded to say, I think I'm getting better at figuring out how I want to track this and what I need to be doing. I'm really glad I did this trial run for November, and I'm going to do it again for December before moving into the workbook, because I feel like I'm really kind of ruling out ironing out some of the kinks in this process. So if you watched my other 3 expense tracking videos for November, you'll notice that I actually wrote all this down with you guys. And that's another thing that I'm also thinking doesn't really work, because I am doing this on like a trial run basis, right? But I'm having to track these things like 3 different times. So I have an app on my phone where I track like especially the variable stuff, just to make sure that how much money I have left in that fund. And then I'm tracking it on like a spreadsheet, so I know what I need to write down here, and that's just way too much, honestly. I think what I'm going to do moving forward is something like this, where I will pre-write in everything, but obviously it will be in the notebook in the new year, and then we'll go through and color code the categories, talk through it, calculate what I spent, and go from there. If I have like, maybe I fell behind and I didn't get to write everything down, I will just track it digitally and then do it on camera maybe. But that's kind of what I'm thinking. I don't want to be tracking the same things a million times. So I hope you guys don't mind this. This is still going to be a little bit of a lengthier video, not only because of me yapping right now, but also because we are going to add up everything in all the different categories that I spent in and just see where we land. I will say, if you've been watching the last 3 expense track-ins, this month has been not great. I feel pretty bad about where I've spent money in terms of like eating out. I have spent a lot in this category. I did start a different job. It's been really, really chaotic. So I've just been relying on eating out. I haven't really been wanting to cook or prep. I'm really hoping in December I can do better with this, and in the new year especially. Obviously with December, there's all the holiday stuff and travel and things like that, but I just don't want my eating out situation to be what it's been. So really this tracking process has been really eye-opening, because I knew that I was kind of overspending in that category and just overspending in general, but I wasn't really tracking it like this. I was more so just tracking the amounts I was spending each pay period to make sure, like, again, that I wasn't running out of variable money, or, you know, if I did, which I often did, that I knew how much I needed to account for in my next paycheck. So I wasn't really looking at like, oh wow, like X amount went to eating out, X amount went to miscellaneous, X amount went to grocery. Like I wasn't really looking at those numbers. And I think this is actually pretty eye-opening to see in dollars, like what's being spent. So with all that to say, let's go ahead and color code, and then we're going to add everything up and see how this month went. I will say this was also a very expense heavy month because we did have to book some travel. We bought, I think pretty much all our Christmas shopping is done except for like me and my husband, whatever we're going to get each other, you know, so this month was pretty heavy in that sense, and hopefully December will be a little bit lighter because shouldn't have too many more gift things to do. I do still have, like I said, we have each other, and then I think I do have like 2 more people that I need to get, but it would be small. So really the bulk of everything is done. So that's good. Hopefully December will be a lower month, but let's go ahead and jump into the color coding. I have this to double check what the colors are. So we'll start with eating out, which is this pink one. Okay. Then, actually, you know what I think I'll do? As I highlight the categories, add them up. So we have like this week's total. And then obviously we'll do the grand total. So okay, $109.50. Next, we'll move on to grocery, which is the purple. $88.29 in grocery. Then I did have a couple car things happen, which again I had budgeted for. So the first one is just gas, which that's not what I'm talking about. But I had to do 2 car maintenance things. I had to order touch-up paint because there are a couple little chips in the paint on my car. And then I had to do my oil change alignment. And in that, I ended up needing to buy 2 new tires because my front tires were apparently very worn, which I knew they were wearing kind of weird because I've never had an alignment, and I've only had my tires rotated once in 3 years. So it's been like 2 years. So you know, they didn't wear the best. So now I have lifetime alignment. That was part of their special. So you can go back as often as you want and get the alignment. So I'll probably plan to do that annually. And then, or just along with my oil changes, which I really don't drive a ton. So I would say my oil changes are once a year because I do have synthetic oil. So they do last longer. Anyway, car total was $768.60, which again, I had budgeted for car maintenance. I knew these things were coming, so I just set aside money for that. Next, let's go ahead and do miscellaneous. $63.45 in miscellaneous. This is definitely another category that I need to work on. Then let's do shopping. I did do a bit of shopping this pay cycle, but again, I have money set aside for this purpose, so I'm not, I'm staying within the means and making sure that I actually have the money for the shopping. I do save a little bit, here and there to just keep a little shopping fund for things that I might want or need, like my face wash, things like that all come from the shopping fund. and that also goes in the shopping category. So let's add that up. That was $224.39. Then let's do travel. $699.75. And we have two more categories. So we have gift, just the one, and that was $101.23. And last we have household, which was just one at $12.75. I just needed some cleaning things, so that one is this color. Okay, so now we have our this week spend. So let's see what the total was. So 109. Obviously, it's going to be pretty inflated because of the travel and the car maintenance. But again, these are things that are covered with reserve funds from savings. So it was $2,067.96. And then let me just, for the sake of knowing what my variable spending was, which is just eating out, grocery, I'm gonna just add in this gas line because the car maintenance doesn't come from my variable, but the gas does. So I may need to think through how I have that. So eating out, grocery, the gas, miscellaneous, that's it. Those are the only things that are actually covered with my like variable budget each month. So just the $42.23 and then miscellaneous. So $303.47. And if we go back to last week, I only had $198.81 left in my variable money for that paycheck. So let's see, let's add to what I spent last week, which was $221.19, and I only budget $420. So I was over by $104.66 in my variable spending, which again, not great. I had the money for it, like I'm not in debt over this, but I don't love that I was this much over in a 2-week basically span. It is what it is. I can't change it at this point. Tracking this stuff has been very eye-opening, I would say, to actually see where the categories of money are being spent. So hopefully December will be better. But let's go ahead and add up the grand total for every category for November. So I'm just going to move this aside. So I'm basically just going to add the categories up from each sheet. So grocery, we had $88.29, $75.02, $122.90, and $80.75. So grocery for the month was $366.96, which is pretty high considering I did eat out a lot. So again, not ideal, but it is what it is. So eating out. $367.22. That is actually crazy that my total food expenditure for this month was $734.18. I'm well aware that is ridiculous. I'm not happy with these numbers. Again, I know I made mistakes. I was definitely relying on convenience and, again, it is what it is. I can't change it now, but it's very, very eye-opening to see this. So next we'll do shopping. So it's $271.57. Let's see, pet. I think it was just the one. Yeah, it was just one transaction at $42.95. Miscellaneous. $146.03. That's also pretty high, honestly, for, uncategorized type spending, but, again, it is what it is. Gift. Let's 502.19. Again, this is definitely like an outlier category with Christmas and everything coming up, so we probably won't see too much there in December. Travel. That's it. So it was $859.59. Oh wait, hold on. That's wrong. So yeah, okay, one of these other categories got messed up too. I didn't realize that hitting the equal sign was like adding to it. So there's another category that did that. So I'll double check. I'll probably cut that out, but I'll double check after we're done with this. Household. We had was 41.11. Car. Again, this is definitely going to be high comparatively because of the maintenance, which is not, always happening. So 804.87. And then we had beauty, which I think was just once, for $307.55. And that was because I did need my hair done this month, and then I also had my nails done, which in my prior video I talked about my frustration with that, and I don't know what I'm going to do about nails moving forward. I think I'm going to try to figure out how to make it last on my own and just do regular polish and save that money. But I'm going to cut this, but I'm going to go ahead and double check that none of these got messed up because of the equal sign adding additional money. So I'm just going to double check that. Okay, I did have to fix the shopping one. That one had extra money accounted for because of the whole equal thing. So that one was actually only $247.98. So let's say grand total. Grand total was $3,606.53. Now, this is a really good example as to why sinking funds or some kind of reserve is really important, because obviously, like, income-wise, all at once, this would have been really, really challenging to manage without having balances roll over into future periods. But because I do have reserves for shopping, gifts, travel, beauty, car maintenance, like I had all those things already pre-saved from saving over time. So this did not hurt to the extent that this would have hurt had I not been planning for that. That's why I do believe in sinking funds. I am not the type that wants to have like a sinking fund for every little minute thing. Like, for example, shopping, right? I could say, okay, X amount is going to go to this, X amount is going to go to that. I just find that very limiting, and also I feel like it's harder to make progress when you have a million sinking funds. So I do try to consolidate, like, okay, everything is going to go into this one shopping fund, and that's what I'm going to use for things like face wash. If I see a book I want or just a random thing that I want, I can take from that fund, and I'm not pulling, I'm not going over budget to do so. and car maintenance, those are things that you can reasonably predict. I didn't know I was going to need tires, but when I was budgeting for that fund and saving for it, I did estimate a little higher than what I was thinking. And because I did that, it did save me in this sense that the 2 tires being needed didn't throw me off, didn't send me into debt, none of that. So, if you don't know for sure, sometimes it's good to estimate a little higher, because if I just had the money, if I didn't need it all, then I would just let it sit there. So now I'm going to be rebuilding the car maintenance fund in a few months when I know that maintenance is going to be coming up again. Now, obviously, I do have an emergency fund in case something comes up that I'm really not prepared for. But the idea is to not need to take from the emergency fund for things that you can reasonably estimate for. Again, travel, these are things that I knew were coming, so I saved for it over time. So I just have a few sinking funds like that do help me, and I really recommend it for you as well, for anything that you find throwing your budget off. So for you, if there is, if you do need 10 different sinking funds for different things that tend to throw you over budget, do it. However you want to do it to make yourself have less stress when these things come up, do whatever you need to do. So anyway, this was a very big month. I'm actually curious to see how next month goes, hoping that the number is a lot lower than this, even though, again, I did have the funds for it. It still is painful to see. And I always, even though it's funny, whenever I have like sinking funds and I know that the money is going to need to be spent, it's still painful to actually spend the money when the time comes, even though I know that I've reserved for it. I just think it's a little bit funny, but that is it for this video. Now I have a starting point to know how to try to improve for December, even though I did know that some of my categories were definitely out of whack, like eating out, miscellaneous. It's really nice to see it on paper for the whole month. I've never tracked the whole month like this. Like I said earlier in the video, I've never actually kept track of the categories in a very long time. I don't think I've ever successfully done it for an entire month like this. So it's definitely really insightful to see, where money is being spent and how to improve next time. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe before you go. Let me know down below, how did your month go? What category do you want to focus on improving for December? I would love to chat about it down below. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.